You know, there's a specific kind of silence that happens in an airport terminal right before a storm hits. Not a weather storm, but a human one. It's that heavy, electric quiet where everyone is tired, everyone is on edge, and the social lines drawn between the haves and the have-nots feel like 10-foot concrete walls. I saw those walls come crashing down on a red-eye flight from Chicago to London last winter. And it started with the most heartbreaking sound I've ever heard. The silence of a 7-year-old boy screaming for help without making a single noise. Let me paint the picture for you. It was gate K12, O'Hare International. Outside, the snow was coming down in those thick, angry sheets that promised delays and misery. Inside, under the buzzing fluorescent lights that make everyone look like they haven't slept in a week, sat Sarah and her daughter, Zoe. Sarah was 35, but looked 50 that night. She was wearing a faded scrub top from her second job as a hospital orderly. The kind of blue that's been washed so many times it's almost gray. She was slumped in one of those unforgiving plastic chairs, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee like it was the only thing anchoring her to the earth. She wasn't traveling for fun. She was taking Zoe to England to bury her grandmother, using tickets bought on 3 different credit cards, maxing out every lifeline she had. Sitting on the floor next to her was Zoe, 11 years old, skinny knees, poking out of jeans that were a little too short, wearing a hoodie that swallowed her whole. Zoe was the kind of kid you usually look right past, quiet, observant, blending into the background. She had a battered paperback book open on her lap, but she wasn't reading. She was watching people. That's what kids who grow up having to be careful do. They watch. They learn the mood of a room before they even step into it. And then, the atmosphere shifted. You could feel it before you saw it. Striding down the concourse came Julian Thorne. You know the type even if you don't know the name. Mid-40s. Wearing a suit that cost more than Sarah's annual salary. Talking loudly into an earpiece about mergers and acquisitions. Demanding the world stop spinning just because he had a schedule to keep. He moved like he owned the airport, like the air itself was lucky to be breathed by him. Trailing about 5 feet behind him, struggling with a carry-on bag that was too big for his small frame, was Leo. Leo was 7. He was pale, with messy hair, and big, dark eyes that looked terrified. And sticking out from behind his right ear was the plastic coil of a cochlear implant. He wasn't looking at the planes. He wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at his dad's back, his free hand, making small, frantic shapes in the air. Wait. Dad. Wait. But Julian didn't turn around. He was too busy closing a deal. He reached back without looking, grabbed Leo's jacket collar to pull him along faster, and kept walking toward the first-class priority lane. Zoe saw it. She nudged her mom. Mama, look. That boy is signing. Sarah opened one eye, sighed the heavy sigh of a woman who just wants to get through the next 12 hours without a disaster. Don't stare, baby. Rich folks don't like being watched. But he's scared, Zoe whispered. Her eyes locked on Leo. He's signing stop and loud. I think the noise is hurting him. It's not our business, Zoe, Sarah said, sitting up and smoothing her scrubs, trying to look presentable for the gate agents, who were already eyeing them with that "do you really belong on this flight? Look, we stay in our lane. We get on the plane. We go to Nana's funeral. We come home. No trouble." They boarded last, shuffling past the first-class cabin to get to economy. It's always a humiliation ritual, isn't it? You have to walk past the pods with the lie-flat beds and the champagne flutes just to get to the cramped seats. By the toilets. As they passed row 2, Zoe slowed down. Leo was curled up in his massive leather seat, looking tiny. He had ripped the cochlear processor off his head and was clutching it in his fist. Julian, his dad, was visibly annoyed, trying to jam the device back onto the boy's head. "You have to wear it, Leo," Julian was saying, his voice tight, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't pay 40 grand for this tech so you could sit there in silence. Put it on." Now, Leo flinched. He couldn't hear the words, but he could see the anger in his father's face. He started to cry that silent, heaving sobbing where the chest shakes, but no sound comes out. Julian groaned, shoved an iPad into the kid's hands, and signaled for a flight attendant to bring him a scotch. Zoe stopped in the aisle. Her mom tugged her hand. Move, Zoe. People are waiting. Zoe kept walking, but she looked back. She saw Leo drop the iPad. She saw him sign one word to the back of his father's seat. Lonely. The flight took off, and for the first hour, it was okay. But then, somewhere over the Atlantic, the turbulence hit. Julian looked up, sweat dripping down his forehead, and saw Zoe standing there. A skinny black girl in a hoodie that read Chicago Public Library across the chest. What do you want? Julian snapped, his defense mechanism kicking in instantly. Get back to coach. This isn't a spectator sport. I can talk to him, Zoe said calmly. Ignoring the venom in his voice, Julian laughed, a harsh, barking sound. Talk to him. I have the best audiologists in the country on speed dial. I have therapists from Northwestern. You think a kid from the back of the plane can do what they can't? Get lost. He's not broken, Zoe said, stepping closer. He's just loud because his world is too quiet right now, and you're making it worse. Excuse me? Julian stood up, towering over her. Security. Get this girl out of here before she'd owe. Sit down, you pompous ass, an elderly woman and seek to be snapped. She slammed her book shut. You've been torturing that boy for an hour. Let the girl try. It's not like you're doing any good. Julian froze. He looked around the cabin. He saw the judgment in everyone's eyes. He looked at his son, who was now hyperventilating, his face turning purple. He looked at Zoe, standing her ground, unafraid. Fine, Julian spat, collapsing back into his seat. You want to play hero? Go ahead. But if you upset him more, I'm having you arrested when we land. Zoe didn't even look at him. She dropped to her knees on the expensive carpeted floor, right in front of Leo. She didn't touch him. She didn't try to force the device on his head. She just waited. Leo was rocking back and forth, eyes squeezed shut. Zoe took her hand and tapped the floor, creating a vibration. Leo stopped rocking. He opened one tear-filled eye. Zoe raised her hands. She signed slowly, clearly. Hi, my name is Zoe. Leo blinked. He sniffled. His hands, sticky with tears and snot, came up slowly. Hi. Zoe smiled. It was the warmest thing in that cold cabin. Are you scared? Leo nodded vigorously. Ears hurt. Plain. Boom dash boom. I know. Zoe signed. Pressure. Like swimming deep underwater. It goes away soon. Julian was watching this, his mouth slightly open. What is she saying? He whispered, almost to himself. What is he doing? Zoe ignored him. She looked at the iPad on the floor, displaying some expensive educational game Leo had ignored. She pushed it away. She made a shape with her hands, a rocket ship taking off. We are on a rocket. She signed, going to the moon. Moon is quiet. No noise on the moon. Leo's eyes widened. He mimicked the rocket shape, moon. Yes, Zoe signed, her face animated, telling a story with her eyebrows, her cheeks, her shoulders. We have to be brave astronauts. Astronauts have magic ears. They turn them off to sleep. She pointed to the cochlear implant on the seat. Magic ear needs a nap. You take a nap too. Leo looked at the device that he hated, the device that caused him so much pain. Then he looked at Zoe. For the first time in hours, his shoulders dropped. He took a deep, shuddering breath. Astronaut. He signed. Captain Leo. Zoe corrected. She saluted him. Leo giggled. It was a rusty, wet sound, but it was a giggle. He saluted back. Captain Leo. The change in the cabin was instantaneous. The tension evaporated. The flight attendant, who had been hovering with a sedative in her hand, slowly lowered it. Julian stared at his son. He watched this stranger, this girl he had tried to throw out, having a full conversation with his boy, a conversation he had never been able to have. Zoe stayed on the floor for the next 3 hours. She didn't move. She told him stories about space, about underwater castles, about a dog that could fly. She didn't use her voice once. She entered Leo's world instead of forcing him to come out to hers. About an hour before landing, Leo fell asleep, his head resting on Zoe's knee. Zoe was exhausted, her legs cramping, but she didn't move. Julian leaned forward. The arrogance was gone. He looked stripped raw. Where? He cleared his throat, his voice shaking. Where did you learn that? Which institute did you study at? Zoe looked up at him, her eyes dark and serious. I didn't go to an institute. My neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, is deaf. She taught me so we could talk about her garden. She gets lonely. Julian whispered. He looked at his sleeping son. He signed that earlier. I saw him do it, but I didn't know. He has a lot to say, Zoe said quietly. You just have to look at him, not at the machines you buy him. It was a slap in the face. But Julian took it. He deserved it. He looked at this girl, poor, black, wearing second-hand clothes, and he saw the immense wealth of her character. He looked at himself, rich, white, powerful, and realized he was emotionally bankrupt. I tried, Julian said, his voice cracking. I bought the best devices. I hired the best speech therapists. I wanted him to fit in. He doesn't need to fit in, Zoe said. He needs his dad to learn his language. You're trying to make him hear you, but you aren't listening to him. When the plane landed at Heathrow, the dynamic had shifted completely. Julian didn't rush off the plane. He waited. He woke Leo up gently, tapping his shoulder the way Zoe had shown him, not shaking him. When they got to the gate, Sarah was waiting, looking terrified, expecting the police or a lawsuit. She saw Zoe walking out of the jet bridge, holding Leo's hand, with Julian trailing behind them carrying Zoe's battered backpack. Mrs. Owens? Julian approached Sarah. He looked humble, awkward. I'm sorry if she bothered you, sir. Sarah started, pulling Zoe close. She has a big heart. Sometimes she doesn't think. Stop, Julian said. He held up a hand. Please, stop. She didn't bother us. She saved us. He looked down at Leo, who was signing goodbye to Zoe. I have money, Julian said, and for the first time, he didn't say it like a flex. He said it like a confession. I have so much money, and I thought it could fix everything, but I couldn't stop my own son from crying. Your daughter did it in 5 minutes with nothing but her hands. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a card. It wasn't a business card. It was a personal card, embossed with heavy gold lettering. I own a tech firm in London, he said, but we have a foundation. We focus on communication. I want to give Zoe a scholarship, any school she wants, anywhere in the world. And I want to pay for you to go back to school, too, if you want, or just whatever you need. Sarah looked at the card, then at Julian. She didn't take it immediately. She had her pride. We don't need charity, Mr. Thorne. It's not charity, Julian said, his eyes watering. It's a consultation fee. She taught me how to be a father today. I can't put a price on that, but I can start by making sure she gets the future she deserves. He knelt down in front of Zoe. And one more thing. Do you think you could teach me? Not just the signs, but how to tell the stories. Zoe smiled. That same patient smile she gave Leo. It starts with watching, she said. You just have to watch. 6 months later, the headlines weren't about Julian Thorne's latest merger. They were about the Thorne-Owens Initiative, a massive grant program funding ASL integration in public schools and support systems for families with deaf children. But the real story wasn't in the papers. It was in a park in Chicago, where a billionaire in a tracksuit was sitting on the grass, looking ridiculous, trying to sign rocket ship to a laughing 7-year-old boy, while a girl in a new hoodie sat nearby, reading a book. Finally resting. It's funny how we measure value in this world, isn't it? We look at suits and first-class tickets and think that means power. We look at hoodies and worn-out sneakers and think that means nothing. But at 30,000 feet, when the noise gets too loud and the fear gets too deep, your bank account can't hold your hand. Your stock portfolio can't wipe your tears. Julian Thorne thought he could buy his son a voice. He didn't realize his son already had one. He was just waiting for someone to care enough to look at it. So, I have to ask you, who in your life are you trying to fix instead of trying to understand? Are you listening with your ears, or are you listening with your heart? Because sometimes, the people we think have nothing to offer are the only ones holding the keys to the things that actually matter. If you've ever felt unheard, Or if you've ever been the one who finally listened, tell me your story in the comments. Let's talk about it. And hey, if this story touched you, share it. You never know who needs to be reminded that kindness is a language everyone can speak. Catch you in the next one.